recording the session now. So this is a 1 hour session of Q&A with David Book. And I'm sure there's a lot going on that David wants to talk about, right, David? And
yeah, can I just start asking all the questions and you guys will answer them for me?
well, let me start with one question.
Can we turn this into a therapy session? Is this like a life meeting?
Maybe we should really have those kinds of sessions here. I've I've unmuted everybody's microphone, so please mute on your end. And
I
then,
only have one question more for you, and it's for you, Warren.
what's that?
Do we have any more details about it's actually two questions rolled in one. Details about our April get together. I'd like to get it on the list of webinars and events in our control panels.
Right. I need to put together something and get it
Sure.
to you. It's
I'm
not.
thinking we should probably jump on the phone and kind of get our heads together on some details about that.
Yeah, I've got. It's kind of just a general framework. It's how our kind of get-togethers go,
Yeah.
David. We have a general plan and then we kind of wing it from there. But I do know
I thought
that
you were just gonna put me. I thought you were just gonna put me on on a table and tie me to a stake and just tell me to talk.
well, there's 6 hours of that, but there's more. There's more. There's much more. Much, much
And then at the
more.
end of the day, you'll just burn me at the stake, and we'll all go home.
No, 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 no. We're gonna get some food
Anyway,
out
yeah,
of you
let's take
first.
some questions from our gang. I'm sharing my screen. It's just we've been doing these Q&As for a couple of months now, and they're actually kind of fun, and all kinds of interesting things come from it. So no questions are off limits.
All right. Well, let me ask the first question, David,
Sure.
because I actually have the itch to build another app or to rebuild
Oh,
an app.
cool.
So, and I want to do it with push notification.
Uh-huh.
I'm self-hosted, but of course I also have a buzztouch.com account.
Right.
If I build it on buzztouch.com, will the push notification work?
I would say yeah.
Okay, because I know that there's with my GoDaddy account, I have issues with ports being blocked and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There's been a bunch of pushes. I mean, they're pushing the heck out of these things, that's for sure. There are some there are some people on different hosts on self-hosting that are still having some troubles. We've talked about in the forum and outside of the forum a couple of different strategies to try to deal with that for people. The most important one, or not the most important one, but the most prevalent one is some sort of a checkbox or something in your self-hosted panel that would allow you to send messages through us. And so that would be an idea, like if you were running, the package on a low-cost server, that they wouldn't let you do these kinds of advanced things. Then you could just route those through our back end. And there's some pros and cons with that approach, and like all the approaches. But yeah, certainly if you build it on buzztouch.com, it'll work just fine.
Okay.
What are you going to make? You want to tell us your secret idea?
Well, it's not really a secret idea.
Uh-oh.
You've seen it, and actually, I'm going to revamp my Dragway application.
I want to get to the end of that drag strip and figure out that timer thing you and I talked about.
Yeah. Well, I know this is off the subject, but there's a company called 1320 Go
Uh-huh.
that now has built an interface to the timing system so that every time you cross the finish line, it sends your time ticket information to your smartphone and to a website, so you can go back
Perfect.
and review it. And as long as you use your competition number everywhere, all the tracks, you can look up what you did at Indianapolis, what you did at Coles County, what you did at St. Louis.
Got it.
So
That's cool.
they already beat me to it. $2,500 to buy it.
You'll just make a better one.
Yeah, probably. So I'm gonna fix that one, and then I got to get that music store app that I've tried 7 times now with Apple to get it approved, and it's never been approved.
Yeah, they don't like music stores.
They don't like. I think they just don't like me, David. That's what I'm going
Okay,
with.
so are we going to
Well,
I'm looking in the questions window. I don't remember. We're going to paste them in there.
Well, I will paste them to your chat window. That way you see them.
Oh, okay, cool.
Now, my second question is: I know you've spent a lot of work, and you took down the server on March 3rd, and what's going on with that, and what kind of fallout is there, and where?
Yeah, yeah. The biggest fallout is just a lack of understanding um, of how everything works. And so, the bottom line is, if you go to your control panel right now on buzztouch.com and you download a project and you open it in Xcode, you're not going to get any errors. We know that. And the whole reason behind that is the iOS 6, right? So all of the plugins were updated, and all of the not all of, but tons and tons of files in the core project were updated. We're not talking Android, we're just talking iOS, and everything was cool. But the problem is, a lot of people are running self-hosted and they have older plugins, and they haven't been able to update their plugins yet, and they don't quite understand why they're getting all these warnings and messages right now. So it's a combination of them just not having their head around how this works, and them trying to basically, when they download a project, they're getting the new core project files, but they're merging them with their old plugins on their self-hosted server. So that's definitely a fallout that we're trying to help people through, because there's just a lack of understanding of how it all goes down. That's all. I
Okay.
expect that everybody's plugins will be updated soon. If you look in, I mean, obviously they have to do that in their self-hosted panel, but if you go to the plugins screen now and you look at any of these packages, all of them are changed. And if you look at, if you were to download this, you would see a new version. So this is version 1.1. The voucher access that went from 1.0 to 1.1. If you go to any of these, this one's 1.1. Some of them are like up to like 1.4 now, 1.5 now. So it shows you the version right here.
So, just a
Yeah,
logistical question there for
1.2.
you, David.
Yeah.
If you didn't upgrade your self-hosted server and you bought a new plugin, would you have a problem?
If you didn't update your self-hosted server from when?
Like I still haven't updated from 2.1.7 to.
Yeah, you should still be okay. But you still need to update these plugins.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so in your case, because you're running the old panel, the
Right.
disappointing part is that's like a one at a time process, right? You got to download the zip, upload the zip for
Right.
each plugin.
Right.
The new panel, you can do that with one click.
Right. Well, I'm going to update it. I just haven't done
Yeah,
it yet.
totally.
Okay. So waiting for other questions. You said you had two questions for me, David, related to our gathering in St. Louis,
Yeah.
and you only asked one. I just wondered what the
No,
other.
I asked them both. I asked one was, do we know a little bit more, and two was, we thought about getting it in our control panel.
Oh, okay. So you did.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is coming up 6 weeks from now, and
I know it's exciting.
Niraj Shah. I know you know who Niraj is.
Yeah,
He he's volunteered to give two different talks, and
awesome.
he's got someone else that's coming with him. I wish I had the email up in front of me. Maybe I can find it here real quick while we're poking around. But he and someone else have made travel plans. They're going to be there. We know Tim Wolf's going to come up, and our whole team's going to be there. And there's Niraj. Alfredo Moreno. Do you know who that is?
Sure sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's going to be there
Yeah,
as
we'll have a
well.
good gang. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I did go ahead and sign the contract, so you're on the hook for some rooms there, David.
Okay.
Just so you know.
We'll get those. We'll get on the phone and get those details handled.
Absolutely. All right, I'm unmuting everybody once again. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any questions in the window. That's kind of unusual.
Yeah, that's for
What are
sure.
you doing?
So please mute your phone on your end.
Huh?
Okay,
I
take
have a
care of that.
question, Warren.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
I tried to type it out, but it was kind of too long. Okay, so I also need to upgrade my self-hosted server. I've been negligent, and now I really need to get it done. And I'm changing. It's a little more complicated. I'm changing also to HostGator from GoDaddy at the same time. But when you upgrade to the first time I did this self-hosted server, I rotely followed the instructions. I just did exactly what it said. I didn't know what I was doing, but I did what it said and it worked. Now this time I'd like to understand what's happening when I'm upgrading it and understand how the pieces work together. Is there like magic that happens? Like like when you that file names are changed when you upgrade, or are you really just replacing those files with the more current files? Like, would it work if I just took each file one at a time and replaced it? Or is there some like overall some point that there's a calculation or something compiles to make the whole thing work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me see if I have the install folder on this machine. Yeah, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so Susan, you're asking two questions really, and or you made a statement and asked a question, but they're good questions. So um, let me open up a file here on this demo server so I can show you what we're talking about. I'm just going to open up the install folder. Okay, I got a few things going on here. So I'm going to talk a little bit first, and then I'll explain what's happening from a technical perspective. Because you asked a good question, and that the best question you asked was, can I just replace a bunch of files?
Yeah,
In other
yeah.
words, can I just upload, use an FTP program and upload all the files and move on? And you could, but it wouldn't work. And the reason that it wouldn't work is each time we do an update, there's a very good chance that we're also making changes that go beyond just the files themselves. And what
Mm-hmm.
I mean by that is like, think of the database. Your database right now, the database structure
Mm-hmm.
is, the tables and the fields are a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the difference between 2.1 and 2.1.7 and 2.1.8 is there's a lot of differences in the database. So when we create all the tables, when you install,
Mm-hmm.
right, we create all of these fields and all these tables in each part of your database as part of the install process. And so if it already exists, when you visit the install screen and you use the same database that you're already using,
Mm-hmm.
it notices that. It doesn't create a new database, of course, because it wouldn't want to overwrite that,
Mm-hmm.
but it modifies your existing database's structure.
Oh, and this isn't the
So
files that you
just
throw
change,
away. This is in the install full directory. That's what you're looking at right now.
yeah, this is all an install.
Oh, so that's something that we delete, so we never see it again after this is done.
Right, right. But you could download the package and look at it again. There's
Yeah.
basically just a series of pages, right? There's the index page I'm on now.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's index 2, index 3. And what you're doing is you're just giving the software a chance to look at your current install and make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
So just uploading the PHP files is not going to be enough. See, like,
Mm-hmm.
look at this. This alters your table. This alters the applications table, and
Mm-hmm.
it adds a bunch of fields to the applications table to support live and design mode, to support push notification registration,
Oh,
all that
sure.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But your database, when you're done with the update process, is different than it was before.
Oh, okay.
But none of the data is overwritten.
Yeah. So would it work just to like take and do a new install of
If
the
you did
whole
a
thing?
new install, then it wouldn't change your database. It would create a new one.
Yeah. So did a new install, but then brought your application and your plugin files back to the new install. Would that work or?
Yeah, but see that, and this is where the complexities come in. If you installed it into a new folder,
Mm-hmm.
which is certainly a great idea. A lot of people do that, right? Like this is 2.1.7. You could do 2.1.8 or something, another folder on your web server.
Yeah.
But the problem is you need to be mindful of how the database is connected to your install. So if you
Mm-hmm.
create another blank database,
Mm-hmm.
well, now you've got the question of how am I going to get all my data from my other database to my new database?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's not an easy thing for a lot of people to get their head around. So if you just create put it in another folder and use the same database,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you could just copy the files directory,
Mm-hmm.
which contains the plugins and the applications,
Mm-hmm.
and just make a copy of it and drag it into your other folder. You could do that.
Mm-hmm.
The number one thing that we run into with this software is there's a lack of understanding of how web-based software works. And so people aren't able to fully take advantage of what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And then they oftentimes get confused with very normal questions like you're asking right now. And really what that is it's just a lack of understanding of how PHP and web servers and databases work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wish that everyone just kind of understood how their back end works, but the fact is they don't.
Well, that's what
And
I'm trying to
that's
do this time is try to understand what I know. I just really rotely followed the instructions and didn't
right.
understand. Now I feel like I'm ready to try to at least try to comprehend it. The other problem I have with the whole thing is, by mistake I named my server BT 2.1.7. So the server so the files have the wrong name. Now when I change those, and I want to get rid of the 2.1.7 because that's will be misleading because it won't even be 2.1.7. When I change the whole directory name, is that going to destroy anything?
No, when you go into your if you are you talking about just changing the name of the folder in the address bar?
So mine always says BuzzTouch 2.1.7 in there because I named it wrong. It's a mistake I made when I installed it, and so I want to get rid of that 2.1.7.
Yeah, so all you would need to do, well, it depends on if you're running the old version or the new version, but in the old version, all you would need to do is just change that folder name
Mm-hmm.
and then go into your admin settings and change the URL and the path. You got to point, you got to tell the database where it is.
Yeah.
In the new one, you're doing that in the configuration file. Everything's in the config file.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and I, that's a perfect example of a change that happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I see a question from John McNiven. Question regarding push notifications. I've followed Mirage's tutorial. I've got the message on iPad asking if it can allow push notifications. But when hold on a sec, if it can allow push notifications, but when I go to registered device section in BuzzTouch, it doesn't show any devices hosted on BT server. Okay, that's a good question, John. In fact, I saw your forum post earlier this morning. I was reading through those. I'll assume you can hear me. So you've got a couple of different things going on. Let me open up a project so we can look at some code and I'll show you what's happening. And then we can try to figure out what's going down. So the first thing that happens is it prompts you for push. And so it sounds like your device is prompting you for push. That's cool. When you say yes, and I'll assume you have, the latest project. When you say yes, a method runs to send the fact that you registered for push to your server. So it sends it to a URL. So it needs to send that to the URL to your self-hosted server. And the easiest way to determine where it's sending it is you see where it says, did register for push notifications with device token. I'm in the delegate file, so this will be your app's delegate file. This method runs when you say, okay, I want to allow this device to accept push notifications. So it gets the token from Apple. It gets the URL from your control panel, the register for push URL, and then it appends the device token in the current mode to this variable called URL, and it makes that request. So you'll see here, it does that with the BuzzTouch device register for push notifications. So if I go over here to device, which is in the core settings, BT device, if I look at the register for push notifications method right here, all it's doing is making an NS URL request with that URL. And so it's going to print that to the log. So I'm just showing you this so you kind of know what's happening, but The bottom line is you're going to want to look at the console down here when you push the yes button on your iPad and take note of the URL that it's posting to. So the next question is how come it's not showing up in your control panel? Well, the first thing we're going to have to determine is what URL is it posting to. Assuming that that's right, it will show up in your control panel. And if it's not, I'd be surprised. I would suspect that URL is not what you expect. Anyway, that's that. Sean McKeen, any thought about setting up a test tool using PHP FSocket open to test ports for push notifications might help reduce a lot of support questions? Yeah, that's a great question, Sean, and a great remark. The answer is yeah, totally. What we've learned, though, is, and I actually did a lot of that testing, and let me revisit what he's talking about. Let me go back to the self-hosted push screen, which is right here. Let me find it, push notifications, Ajax. In this file, this is the file that sends the push notifications if you're running self-hosted. So there are a few functions in here. One's called process APNS feedback, and one's called connect to APNS. What Sean's suggesting is because a lot of low-cost hosts, as it turns out, are not allowing these ports to be open, the ports that are necessary, 2195 in this case, and 2196 for the feedback server, 2196 up here. Anyway, because a lot of hosts are not allowing that to be open, Sean's saying, hey, why don't we just do a little test? Where was I? Here we go. Why don't we just do a little test and use the built-in PHP tool, FSocket open, and test if this port is open or closed. And that makes a lot of sense, and we could probably do something a little bit sophisticated actually to make that determination. What we found is a lot of these none of the hosts work the same way. And so some of these hosts, even calling this method or throwing an error that I can't seem to trap, like I should be able to trap this error in PHP by putting the @ sign in front of it to kind of silently fail and capture the error. But I'm having trouble getting all of them to behave the same way, and therefore it's hard to know what the right code is to write. I totally agree that we do need to test for the users who install the software if their server can even support this. We're totally on the same page there, and I do expect to have that eventually released, right? But it's a combination of that and giving them the choice, like if it's not supported on their back end, what is their option? Do we have to write them a big instruction PDF, or do we give them a checkbox to send from us? These ideas are all kind of tied together, but that's a great question. Great question. And part of the challenge that we run into is, when we do everything open source, and give it away and let people use it and play with it, we run into things that, frankly, we need to run into so that we can keep making things better and better. But at the same time, it's frustrating for folks who are, in this case, on a back end that won't do something we all expect it to do. But that's a great idea, is to just do a better job of detecting what the thing can do before we try to do it. I'm hoping that I'm going to go back to John's. I'm hoping what I said makes sense. I know I talk fast sometimes, but the whole point is we got to figure out what URL you're trying to register your device at, and it needs to go to your back end. And that URL, once it's in the console down here, it prints it to the console. You should be able to copy it and just paste it in your address bar and see what happens. I don't see any more questions in here.
Yeah, we don't have any more.
It's a quiet day.
It is a quiet day.
This is what happens to the radio show guy who doesn't have anything to talk about. He just makes stuff up.
Well, I tell you what,
I could go in a lot of different directions. I'm just trying to figure out.
I got a hand up here. Leon G has got his hand up, and he says he has a question for you. Leon, your mic is unmuted, so go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hi, Leon.
Hi, David. Hi. So the question is, about the design in live mode.
Yes.
At this point, the custom HTML and text is not possible to use this live design mode. Is this going to change in the future? I don't know if this
Yeah.
is already asked, but for me it's
Yeah,
new.
no. In fact, that's a great question, and let me revisit that. That was discovered 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think you might have been the one who discovered it for us.
I don't think so.
No? Maybe it was Ian or Mark or somebody. We had a discussion online. Let me show the audience what the problem is, and then I'll talk about what some of the ideas are. Because, yeah, we're trying to figure out a way around it. If you go to a screen right now and you change anything about, like I'll change this map. If you change this screen, you see how I have a green button up here in the publish section? So that means
Yeah, I
that
noticed that.
nothing, yeah, so live and design are the same right now. So if I go to, well, let me just give you an example. If I go to configuration data and I looked at the live data, you'll see the last modified and the last published date. And I look at the, I mean, this is design data. If I look at live data, they're exactly the same. So that's why we have a green dot here. So if I go to one of my screens, and I was just on the map there, and I hit, save anywhere in here. Let me just save this. If I hit save, what we've done now is we've made a change to the app. It's really that simple, right? So our publish button now turned red. The reason it's red is that's supposed to be a cue that they don't match anymore. So if we go back and look at this configuration data, this is the design data, and you can see that its last published date didn't change, but its modified date did. And it got modified, in essence, a couple seconds ago. If we look at the live mode now, you'll see that there's a difference. So that's what's being detected when this whole live and design mode. That was just kind of the backstory. So let me show you now the problem with the HTML page. The HTML page is creating a web page on the file server on the back end. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So if we look at the data for this screen, this JSON data, you'll see that one of the things in this data is a URL. This is an actual file on an actual machine. I'm going to copy this URL, and I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to paste it in here. This is the web page. So we can view the source. It's just an HTML page. So this is pretty simple stuff. It doesn't have the body and all the header and footer for the HTML in here yet, because it's more appropriately called an HTML snippet. But anyway, it's just a page. And so technically when I hit save, I'm just changing the contents of this web page. So if I say app and I put changes and I save again, if I refresh that URL, I get these changes. So all we're doing with this little text editor that everybody knows that I don't like very much is we're just modifying that file on the file system. So that's cool. The problem is, even if we're not intending to publish these changes, we've still modified the file. So even if you have an app in design mode, if you have an app in design mode or live mode, that change is going to be detected by this screen on that app, that plugin, because that plugin is just always going to look at this URL. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve, that needs to be solved, which is better defined by, if I'm in my control panel and I want to make a change to this screen, but I don't want to publish that change, what can we do about it? And there's not really an easy solution today, which is why it's not fixed. I have worked on a couple of different ideas. I'm the one who made this plugin. I'm pretty intimate with the way it works. I think what we're going to end up having to do is making 2 files for every time you create a screen. I think we're just going to have to create 2 files. One's design and one's live. And then when you use the publish button, we'll have to switch this URL. But it's pretty darn complicated to find all of the different URLs in the project based on how the database is set up and the file system and all that kind of stuff. But Yeah, we do hope to fix it. It's not fixed yet. And it's just one of those things that, unintended consequences. This is the only plugin that this works this way on, because it's the only one that is creating an actual file. All the other ones are just working with the database. All these other screens, when we make a change, like this video player screen, when I hit save, we're not creating any files. We're just changing all these properties in the database. And so that's why they all work perfectly. But that HTML plugin, I think another way that I thought about doing it was, instead of creating a file on the file system that the screen points to, maybe we just save that HTML to the database just like everything else gets saved, and that would make it easier to differentiate between live and design. So great question. Maybe somebody else will take that plugin and run with it and come up with a better way.
Well,
The HTML plugin's always been one of my, I'm not a fan of that plugin at all. And
yeah,
I can
but if you're not a fan of it, there's no. I actually think this is the best one of them
I
all.
know.
You
Yeah.
can do everything with it, and you can do your own stuff. So I can see a way around it. So how do you do this?
No, and that makes perfect sense. And I'll frame that not a fan of it a little bit with a little context. I think that it's clear that everybody in our audience and everybody making apps uses HTML heavily, right? I mean, we all do. We do all different kinds of things with it. So I certainly wouldn't want to ever remove a way to add HTML to your app. That's kind of not the goal. But what we run into is, because we use this editor, and because we're interacting with the file system, it introduces a lot of problems that I think we could maybe solve in an easier way. For example, why can't you just upload an HTML file?
Yeah.
Right? For a lot of people, that would be better. Why can't you, use a better tool? Like this designer here is kind of famously limited. Maybe we can come up with a better editor to put in this HTML plugin that will allow you to make, let's just say, allow you to have less trouble. So when I say I'm not a fan of it, it's not that I don't like it in terms of its existence. I just don't like the way it works. I think it's got a lot of room for improvement.
I got another one for you if you want another question.
Sure.
We had this thread yesterday, I think, as you did all the new stuff with the plugins and for the self-hosted, because I'm self-hosted, and I had some troubles, and I wrote that, and some other people too. And I finally found it out, and I was pretty proud about myself. But
Good.
it's like, it was all about, you already answered, I think, about the 3 or 4 plugins that were not from BuzzTouch, but from the buzztouchmods
Right.
side, or maybe I don't know. But it was pretty hard to figure it out, because I have every single plugin. I bought every single one of them. So every time I compile my new apps, it's like every single plugin is in it. So it's always like something is making trouble. Which plugin is it? And this is and we have some. We know which ones they are. It's all the buzztouchmods things. Particularly, it's the BTM RSS feed plugin. The problem is here. Of course, you can just delete it and everything is fine. But we heavily need this plugin because we're doing many things with RSS feeds, actually building a plugin for maybe BuzzTouch users in the future, but not quite there yet. And so I have one code question thing.
Sure.
I think my colleague is on here too, so he should just write me if I'm saying it wrong. But we got the BT rotating nav controller. I think that's called a class or something. Is in the that's not there anymore. So this particular part is making trouble, and that's why we're getting errors.
Perfect.
So the question is, how is it called now?
That's a great question, and you'll notice if you look at an old project from a few days ago and you download a new project right now, the changes that you're referring to and the trouble that you're referring to is all going to be in this layout folder. So in your layout folder from an older project, this file called tabbarcontroller.h and tabbarcontroller.m, these used to be called rotating tabbarcontroller.h and rotating tabbarcontroller.m. So what's happening is the code, and I don't have that RSS plugin in front of me, I don't even think I can download it. I don't think I have a login for BuzzTouchMods, but
Yeah, you don't
your
have to.
plugin.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's not. You don't have to log in
Can I
for
just
that.
go
You can
grab
just
it?
download it right away.
Yeah, let's look at it. Let me go get it. BuzzTouchMods.com, I think. I haven't been there in a long
Yeah,
time.
that's right. Yeah, and just go there on downloads. Yeah,
Latest
just go on
downloads?
downloads. I just have to do it myself. I'll do it with you right now.
Yeah, it's RSS, right?
It's BTM RSS feed. It's a little bit more down, I think. It's on, down, down, down. It's where you say plugins.
Here, I'll
Yeah,
just
it's
search
right there. It is.
RSS. Yep.
Yeah,
So let me download this thing and I'll show you what we got here. Um, download. This is a great question because we can just discover this thing right now. I'll show you.
yeah,
Really, all it is it's a syntax change, right? And it's just really
yeah.
confusing when you've not done it before, and I totally understand that. So I'm going to unzip this.
But it's it's a red alert, so nothing will
Yeah,
compile if you have this
right,
on it.
exactly,
Many people won't
exactly,
know why, and
totally.
I think some people won't know that it's not a BT plugin actually because it's
Yeah,
called
totally. You're exactly
BT
right. You're exactly
uh,
right. So what I'm going to do is
RSS.
I'm going to make a new folder. I've downloaded it right here. I'm going to make a new folder called BT plugins, just so it looks like the project that you download. This is how it'll be, and it'll be inside of that folder. So interestingly, we don't need any of this stuff in here. We just want what the heck does he give us? He gives us all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
Where's
these
the,
are the things you have to add, but that's you don't need that. Just need the
yeah, let me get the iOS stuff.
yeah.
Where's the iOS code? Oh, here it is. So I'm going to open up this iOS folder and I'm going to copy all these. Ignore what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to demonstrate that
Yeah, it's fine.
when you drag it in. Okay, so this is the stuff that goes in our iOS project.
Yeah.
We've got these are the files that will be in your plugins folder when you drag it in. So I'm going to drag this in right now, and then we'll find those errors you're talking about. So if I drag this into this project, this is now the only plugin in this project. This project we're looking at right here just didn't have any plugins. So now I have this one. So when I hit product build,
It's not gonna
we'll get
build.
those errors, and I'll show you what they are. It sounds to me like there's just some file names that are off without even looking at it. Yeah, like this thing here, it can't find BT screen header image view. That file doesn't exist. So that's odd.
But
So
that's
if you
not
go to, yeah, that's not there. So
that's not the real problem we had now.
yeah, if it's looking for this file, then if it's dependent on this file, then that file should be included in this plugin, right? But it's not. So I happen to have a copy of that file, which was 2 or 3 years ago work. Let me find it here. Let's see, where would that be? Boy, it's been so long. Let's go to, see if we can cruise through this. Let's go to here. We look at an old 1.5 project. I believe in the core settings here. What were we looking for? Screen header image view. I think I have that from a long time ago. Core maybe? Objects. Boy, I'm going way back. No.
Let me have a look.
Got to be in somebody's folder somewhere. I thought I'd have it right here, but maybe I don't.
Well, I can maybe just a second.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to be so we don't run out of time. that file needs to be found and included in the project, but you're going to get other errors other than that. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this line here so that it doesn't error. And I'm going to search for this to make sure it's, yeah, it's used. That's the only place it's used. Let's just not use it. Let's just get rid of it. Okay. Product, build. Let's find some other errors. That was the first one. So this top import is trying to import a file that doesn't exist. So I'm just removing those. Because I searched everywhere else in the plugin that's not being used anywhere else. So we don't even need that file apparently.
I know where that file is. Yeah, I know what you mean. The file is on buzztouchmods too.
Okay,
Right.
so here's the 22 things you're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about these. That's right.
Here we go.
Yeah, like the
Tons of them.
rotating thing that down there. Yeah, that's. Yeah, you don't
Okay,
need
so
those. We don't have these because we have these. Yeah, it's more about the rotating thing. I think I would like to have an answer on the. Let me tell you how it's called. The BT rotating nav controller.
Yep.
That the problem
Let's
with that.
find that again. It's just going to be a file name change, I believe. Let's see here.
Yeah, for sure. Just maybe you can just maybe just
I'm
know
trying
right
to
away.
find. I don't see it in here.
Yeah, it was in there.
All of these are the same, right? All these, the debugger class now. These fixes are the same. You just need to put the name of the property in front of the key. So all these show it. When the debuggers used, all those messages show it. Everywhere you have the debugger in use, you need to put the name of the method's property, which changed. But I don't see the rotating nav bar warning. It's called, let me search for that key. It's called rotating nav bar?
Yeah, it's called BT rotating nav controller.
And it's referenced. It's not referenced in this file.
Okay.
I wonder if it's in a different plugin. Oh, it might be in the web view.
Yeah, it's
There it is. There it is.
Right now,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. It's in the web view class, not the RSS reader class.
Yeah.
So everywhere you see this, and I'm going to show you in the core project that what's changed here. In the layout folder, see where this is called rotating nav controller?
Yeah.
This is now called BT navigation controller. It used to be called rotating navigation controller. See how I changed the name of that file?
Yeah.
I'm pointing to this one now instead of the one that doesn't exist anymore. So everywhere you see this word, it needs to be replaced with this word.
Very good. That's
Right in your web view, it looks like that's happening in, what was it, 4 places?
At least
4 or 6. Here we go. I'm just searching and replacing these with the actual file name. There we go. So now it's gone. So I changed that in 6 places in this file. So that's one thing, is that file name changed. That's all you got to change there. But all these other warnings, this thing needs to be updated. These are just syntax errors, like get style value for screen, for example. If
yeah,
you
but
look
some
at this,
syntax errors don't let the app compile.
yeah. So like this says that. See, this is using the BT strings class. If you look at the BT strings class, all these messages are basically doing the same thing. If you look at the strings class, let me find it. We'll learn a little something here.
Yeah.
This is the interface for get style value for screen. I'm going to copy this. Just going to make a little space here and show you what's going on. So this is the declaration, what we call a property declaration for a method. So the method is called get style value for screen. So in the BT strings class, I just copied this so I could look at it on the same screen. So it's asking for 3 different arguments. It's asking for the parent screen data, the name of the property we want to find, and then the default value. So in iOS, or excuse me, in Xcode 4.5 and in the past, you could use a shorthand method and you didn't need to name these properties when you triggered the method, but now you need to name them. So we're using the BT strings class, we're using the get style value for screen method, and right in front of the colon here, we need to name this property. And the way I know what to name it is it's right here. It tells me what it's called. So we need to name that, and then we need to name the default value. And that'll make that message go away. You see the yellow thing just went away?
Yeah.
So with each of these methods where you have these warnings, it's because we're not naming the property. And it's tedious because there's so many of them. So this is that same one again. So we need a name of property.
So we're going to have to do that 128 times.
So somebody does, exactly. So we just did that about 1,000 times in all the other plugins, because the new version of Xcode will no longer allow what we used to call shorthand method calls. This is long version, verbose, and they make us do that now. So with each of these things in this plugin, it doesn't take as long as you might think. It's probably about 10 minutes to do this. Everywhere it says show it, this method here, show it, it's not naming the property, which is the message. So every single one of these, and you can just copy the message, right? Watch how fast this is. Just copy it, and just go one at a time and paste this in everywhere you have that warning, and those will all just go away.
David, is this going to be the same at the get JSON value things? Is this the same procedure?
It's the same procedure. You're just naming the property of that method. So in the JSON one, if you were to look at the method in the strings class, you could get the names of the properties. And I know from memory, because we just looked at it, that this is name of property. That's what we want to get out of the JSON. And we want to provide this as a default value. So Xcode's just making us put these names in front of each argument. That's all this is.
That was a big help.
Yeah, I'm glad. And so as far as the header image view,
yeah, we got that sorted. That's no problem.
Yeah, that's going to be easy. The rest of the syntax stuff is just frustrating. You know, it's funny too, because when we went from iOS or Xcode 4.3 to 4.4, we were able to fix all the little warnings and syntax errors in like 2 days. This one took over a month.
Yeah, wow.
That's just what we got to do, right? And one thing that people don't really understand, and I'm going to brag a little bit here about kind of the coolness of what we're doing, is if you were to make an app a year ago and you want to do an update to it now, and that's all you did is a year ago, and you got the Xcode and you opened up your app from a year ago, you'd have all these same problems today, right? Every developer goes through this stuff. What we're trying to do is deal with a lot of those, in advance, so that you guys don't have to. And that's just kind of what I call like a quiet little benefit of being in our community, right? You can get a lot of this stuff done for you because somebody else it's not just me, it's lots of people kind of discovering these new little nuances with each new release of Xcode and iOS. And it's cool to be part of a gang that's kind of all on the same page with that, because, well, I'd hate to be doing this alone these days. It would be impossible. Yeah, that would suck. So great questions. We've got about 5 more minutes, it looks like. And then Sean, I'm going to go back to Sean's before we get to Susan's last question. I think she's got her hand up. Sean's saying, what can we expect over the next month from BuzzTouch and David? Well, in what regards? In regards of features, I think the focus, in my mind, for next month being March is going to be all about documentation. We kind of vowed early in January to not add any significant features after we did live and design and push until we get this thing documented. And so I think the big goal for all of us is going to be on this end, giving you guys what you deserve so much, which is some docs and some videos about how. That was a perfect example of what I just explained. That should already be laid out. You should have been able to go to the docs and found that file and understood that, but we just haven't ever gotten to that point. So that's kind of my focus in March, along with buttoning up a lot of these other little loose ends. So Susan, you got the last one. We got 3 minutes.
I was gonna say that there's a RSS feed plugin that's actually pretty close to being done. So we might have something that's available from the BuzzTouch plugin market very soon.
Oh, cool. Good, good, good. I wonder if it's any better or any different. That's good to know.
No, it's actually very similar to the 1.5. And
Okay, good.
the developer is going to contact you because he just wanted to talk that through because he felt like he was using a lot of your code to do the same thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Or if he's extending
updated,
David's or mine or whatever, maybe we just need to add a little something to it to make it a little different.
yeah. But it's good. It's going to work for the more current BuzzTouch, and it's going to work in 2.0. So
Right, exactly. So somebody's taking the time to go through and fix all those errors or whatever. That's awesome.
yeah.
I think we're about out of time, guys. It's about noon. I do need to run at noon today. We didn't have a lot of questions, but
Still
some
good.
useful discussion about installing the self-hosted panel, about debugging a lot of these warnings and stuff when you're using code from another project, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, good information, David, as always. I know that Susan, last week we had talked about doing some Android-based training every other week. Is that still the plan for next Tuesday?
I would love to do that.
I need to connect with David on what this is, but what I've assembled is a list of people who are committed to learning Android and to taking existing iOS apps and adding Android to them. And so where I'm going with it, but I just need to connect with you, David, make sure it's okay with you. But I wanted everyone that was in the training to actually have something that they're actively working on, so that when they come back to the next training, they show us their progress, and then David shows us how to do the next step on those, and we all kind of learn together. But at the end of it, we also have, so everyone in the training will have like a live project. So if you want to put us down for 2 weeks from today, that would be, I'll definitely have us have a team ready to go and a more clear plan by 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks from today, not
Oh.
next week.
Oh, next week. Next week's fine too. Next week is fine too.
Okay, David, are you up
That
for
sounds
that?
fun.
Okay. All right, we'll plan on that, and every other week, starting next week, will be specific to Android training.
Okay, yeah, good. That's a plan.
All right.
That sounds super fun.
So with that, David, I'll let you run out the door here. I know you got other places to be. And
I do. I got a big day lined up with a bunch of crazy stuff happening.
nothing for us as a group plan for tomorrow. So next Tuesday will be Android training. And then I think on Wednesday night is another new user webinar. So with that, we'll call it an afternoon. This should be posted here shortly. So if you want to go back and review it, it'll be available. And with that, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Warren.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.